Welcome to Ohio Roots, the official podcast of the Ohio Genealogical Society. Join us as we embark on a captivating journey through Ohio's rich genealogy, history, and abundant resources. Hosted by me, OGS Executive Director Noel Poirier, this podcast brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests, from OGS members, chapter leaders, and staff to renowned genealogists, historians, and influential figures within the genealogical community. Each episode delves into fascinating topics and captivating stories. So grab your headphones, hit that play button, and join us on this enthralling journey of Ohio's roots. My guest on this episode of the OGS Ohio Roots podcast is Kenneth Marks. Kenneth is a retired software executive turned genealogist. He began researching his family history in 2002 and has since become a leading expert in online newspaper research for genealogy. He founded the Ancestor Hunt website, a widely used website that now features over 275,000 curated links to free online resources across 24 different genealogy categories, along with more than 3,000 published articles and numerous genealogy quick sheets. Kenneth has authored 4 books on genealogy between 2021 and 2025, focusing on newspaper research, online resources, and obituaries, has presented webinars for societies, libraries. In 2025, he launched the Newspaper Research Academy, providing guides for on-demand webinars and free resources to further support genealogists worldwide. So I'm really looking forward to my conversation today with Kenneth Marks. I hope you enjoy it as well. Well, I'd like to thank Kenneth Marks for joining me today on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast. Kenneth, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is great.
And you don't look a day over 50.
Oh, well, I'm almost 80, so there.
Oh, you could have fooled me. I'm gonna start with what I start all our guests on, which is trying to get a little bit of background. How is it you found genealogy? What was it that gave you the bug to kind of pursue genealogy and any pursuit at all?
I don't know, actually. Seriously, I mean, I think my mom died my dad had died 30 years ago, but my mom died in 2003. And I sort of remember seeing an ancestry ad on the television in 2002, but I could be wrong. Anyway, so I thought, well, maybe I should look into that, and I did. I got a free account, and then I paid for it and did some initial searching. Then I dropped it for a while. Then she passed, and unfortunately, I didn't get the bug before she passed. As we all know, right. You need to talk to the older people before they take off. So anyway, it was around 2003 or so I got interested, and I started doing my own genealogy. And I distinctly remember when I started, I only knew the names of 2 of my great-grandparents. That's it. And actually, my mom told me the wrong middle name for her grandfather. But anyway, as it turns out, so I thought, well, geez, there's got to be more of them out there. And I distinctly remember my first big find, and that was a census record in probably 1930, maybe. And that's when I found one of my great-grandmothers on my dad's side, who was living with her daughter and her family. And I went crazy. I thought, whoa, hey, cool, I found something. And her name was Molly Marks, same surname as me. And so, that was great. And then I could go on and on about my personal genealogy, but that's when I started. And the biggest, I'll just say one thing about that. The biggest find for me was in 2010. And that's when I had a surname in my tree called Braunhart, Braunhart. And I had found these 4 or 5 people named Braunhart who'd immigrated here from Germany, but I couldn't put anything together. And I had started a family history website, and I was writing stories about who I'd found and blah, blah, blah. And I got contacted by a woman in New Jersey who was also doing genealogy research. She turns out to be I think my 3rd cousin once removed. Anyway, and so we got together and we went crazy for a year. We were sending emails back and forth 30 times a day. And we found German letters written in German from Germany to the some of their siblings who had gone here and back and forth, whatever. So that was cool. And then there was tons of photos that we found and yada, yada, yada. And then the biggest single thing was I found a woman, again, who contacted me via my family history website, who lived in Germany. She's about my daughter's age. And her father her grandfather was murdered in the Holocaust. And her
Okay.
dad and his two siblings were taken away from her grandfather. He was married to a Christian woman, and they said, you have a choice. You can either divorce your wife, or we're taking you and the kids to wherever they took them. Right.
Hmm.
And she didn't know anything about her family. Every time she asked her dad, he clammed up. He didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so she felt kind of disjointed from her family. Anyway, so
Sure.
she contacted me, and she was so thankful, and she still is thankful. It just made all the world's difference to her, and for me, that's probably the biggest single
Yeah.
thing that inspired me to continue.
Yeah, I think that it's always fun when you do discover something that kind of keeps you going, because I'm sure you, like everybody, has hit brick walls, and it can be frustrating, and occasionally just finding something unique and new can kind of keep you going.
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't even claim to have brick walls at this point. There's really only one person that showed up on an 1880 census as the daughter of my great grandfather Lewis. No, not Lewis. Joseph. Great great grandfather Lewis Marks, and there was a daughter there in the 1980 census that said she was 11 years old, and I could never find what happened to her. And it
Huh.
might have been a mistake, but whatever.
Yeah.
But that's really my only brick wall. I mean, I just keep searching.
Yeah. Right. Along those lines, you're the founder of a website called The Ancestor Hunt. So
Yes.
talk to me about how that came about.
Well, as I said, I got interested in doing genealogy research, etc. And I thought that I kind of knew enough to be able to share beyond my family history websites. I have two of them uh, about what I knew. So I started a blog, and I started writing articles, and so that was good. And then probably around the same time, I got interested in newspaper research.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I just did not know the stories of my ancestors. I only had two or three uh, relatives who were older than me, and they told me what they could, but they didn't know much either. And
Right.
so I just started doing newspaper research, and I got hooked big time. And so I started writing articles about newspaper research. My first foray into listing free online newspapers, of which there is, I think, 85,000 titles now that I got on my website, but I had about 10,000 that I listed. And then I expanded to other categories. So I've been going full bore since about 2012 on the Ancestor Hunt website. Again, with the biggest single interest for me is newspaper research, because I have found that a lot of people didn't even do it.
Right.
And
Right.
when they tried it, they got so frustrated because of all the OCR issues
Hmm.
caused by poor quality input, the old garbage in, garbage out thing.
Sure.
And so I started figuring out ways to get around that and writing articles about how to do it. So, and
Do,
that's
do you
all.
think
Go ahead.
No, do you think your interest in the stories of your ancestors, as opposed to their simple kind of birth, marriage, and death dates, is what kind of pushed you into looking at
Oh,
newspapers?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a name collector. I don't care if, I don't care if I'm related to Charlemagne
Right.
or Pocahontas. I just don't care.
Yeah.
And it's not a big. I think I've got 800 some odd people in my tree, and it's probably going to end up that many.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not. That's never inspired me. It's all about the stories, as far as I'm.
What was there a particular story that you came across for one of your ancestors in newspapers that resonates?
I don't know if it's I mean, I got stories of a great great uncle who got shot at in his pool hall. I've got another great great uncle who married a woman with a teenage daughter, and he and his wife pimped out his stepdaughter and her
Oh,
girlfriend,
Jesus.
so he went to prison. So did she, the mother. It's stories like that,
Right.
and not just crime stuff, but just all kinds of stories. It just inspires me to know more about them. My
Right.
motto is really quite simple. It's twofold. One is, if we don't write their stories, who will?
Right.
Right. And secondly, I believe that we need to honor our ancestors. And I do that by writing stories about them, posting them on my family history website and other places. So
Mhm.
that's just what inspires me to keep going.
I mean, your background is as a software executive, so you're
Absolutely.
obviously familiar with technology and how things have changed over the years. And from the time you started the Ancestor Hunt website to today, how has technology dramatically affected the way the site runs and the way you do your research?
When I started, I think I started with a package called Weebly, who's now owned by, I think it's called Squarespace or something.
Mm.
And I started. At first I didn't put any ads on my site,
Mhm.
and since that time, about 2013 or 14, I thought, well, why don't I put a few ads? Might as well make a few bucks. Now, I was making $100 a month or something, and then as the site grew and et cetera, I got more interested in put ads on the site. Be honest, I hate my site right now because it has too many ads on it. I really do. I wouldn't use it. And that's not a great advertisement, but I've come up with premium programs that take ads off for people who want to pay $10 a year or whatever. And so um, that, and I had a personal reason to keep making money beyond Social Security and such, and
Right.
still do. So, I'm working 60 hours a week, whether I like it or not. And I do like it because I'm just not the kind of guy that's going to sit around and watch TV all day. So,
Hi, everyone. Noel Poirier here, Executive Director of the Ohio Genealogical Society and your host for the Ohio Roots podcast. Did you know you can help preserve the past and empower the future? Your donation to the Ohio Genealogical Society helps protect vital family history records and supports research for generations to come. Visit www.ogs.org/donate and give today. Thank you so much for your support. Join us on Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025, for the Mavernine Harshman OGS Librarian Day, a special event at the Ohio Genealogical Society Library designed for librarians, society members, and anyone passionate about genealogy and local history. The day begins with a collaborative session on successful genealogy programming ideas led by the Northeast Ohio local family history librarians, and the afternoon continues with a panel discussion on how libraries support genealogical research in today's evolving landscape. A guided tour of the OGS library and archives rounds out the day with opportunities for independent research and exploration. Whether you're looking for programming inspiration, research strategies, or community connection, this event offers valuable takeaways for all. For more information and to register, visit the OGS events calendar at www.ogs.org/events. How do you decide what to include on the website?
I started, as I said, with curating free online titles for newspapers,
Mm-hmm.
and that grew. And I thought, well, why don't I put some other categories in there? And I did birth records and marriage records and death records, and I got interested in yearbooks, interestingly
Mm-hmm.
enough, and that's probably my most popular category, believe it or not, because people other than genealogists are interested in looking at old yearbooks.
Right.
And so I just picked, I've got 24 categories. I got military records, criminal records, institutional records. I could go on and on, but that's it. There's about 24 categories.
Right.
There's about 275,000 total links to free collections, and that's what I did. And I'm be honest, I get kind of tired of updating it all the time, but my visitors deserve to have links in there that work. So
Right.
I'm always doing broken link checks and things of that nature.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask, because I know whenever you think about pages with lots of links on them, just keeping up with what's actually still there or actually is still working correctly must be just a nightmare.
Well, it's not really a nightmare. I've found a really good broken link checker, and every time I add something, and sometimes not even add it, I just update it. At least every year for each category, a
Mhm.
couple of times a year for newspapers and yearbooks. They're more popular, and but I always do broken link checks, and I'd say my site is pretty clean when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But that's just because I spend the little bit extra time, run the broken link checks through what's there and fixing the ones that are broken. And it's I'd say my site is probably 98% clean.
Yeah. Technology has changed the way people do genealogy. In some ways, it's made it simpler, but in other ways, it's made it, I think, more difficult because as you mentioned earlier, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Mhm.
When it comes to some of this stuff, I like your insights on the importance of technology in doing genealogy research today.
Oh, it's everything. I mean, when I got started, I was an online researcher, right? Period.
Mhm.
I've always been an online researcher. Nobody in the genealogy world has met me, nor have I met them in real life. Uh, I did so much travel in my career that I
Mhm.
was burnt out on travel. I don't want to go anywhere. I mean, I've got a friend in California I see every couple of months, but other than that, I don't like to travel anymore. It's just too much of a pain. And so I've been hip on online research. And one of the things that has inspired me with my website, my Facebook page, and all the other places I'm at is that a lot of people, when they get started, they have no clue what to do. They
Mhm.
just don't.
Sure. Right.
They don't have developed research skills. A lot of them don't even know how to use the internet much. Not a lot, but few.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I find my goal is to help hobbyists and newbies to get started and
Mhm.
figure out where to find things. Excuse me.
And to that end, I know you've done a lot. You do these things called quick sheets. You've done
Yeah.
webinars and things. Talk to me a little bit about all those educational things you're doing to help people.
Okay. I don't know how I got inspired to do quick sheets, but I'm an idea guy. I drive people crazy. Oh yeah, I'm going to try this, and but quick sheets I started probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought, why not put together a 1 or 2 page summary? It might have links in it, it may not, about how to find things, where to find things, and there's about, I think I've got about 80 of them, something like that. And then, and they're basically, you can download it as a PDF. And it's on all subjects. I think about 15 of them are about newspaper research.
Hmm.
The other ones are about all other kinds of genealogy categories. And so I did that for 4 or 5 years. I updated them all last year. And I've got something brand new that I hope you'll ask me about called the Newspaper Research Academy, but we can leave that towards later.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then
Go
I,
ahead.
I do news. I've pretty much only done newspaper research webinars in terms of topics, but
Mhm.
I've done them for several genealogy societies and libraries
Right.
and such.
There are so many different kind of digitized newspapers out there, both paid and free, obviously. How do you educate people on how to search those? Because obviously each of those vendors or sites are going to maybe use different methods of searching that.
You know, at one time, when I first had my first YouTube channel, well, I still have it, but I've done anything on it for a couple of years. But I started by doing how to search different types of databases, but I've actually stopped that because it's because there's stuff out there already.
Mhm.
You can go to newspaper.com or newspaper archive, genealogy bank, etc., and they've got tutorials on their site. They don't need me to
Mhm.
add to it. Advantage Archives has a tutorial. Viridian, they've got over 250 million pages. This is an outfit from New Zealand, by the way,
Mhm.
and but they uh, all of their user interfaces are a little bit different, so it doesn't make sense
Right.
to actually do that. So, I mean, the bottom line is there's enough resources out there that other people have done, and
Mhm.
I'm just not into duplicating stuff just for
Right.
my own self-aggrandizement.
So you mentioned it briefly. I guess this year you kind of launched the Newspaper Research Academy. What do you hope that does?
Well, I hope it's a destination place for people who want to learn how to do newspaper research.
Hmm.
There's three categories of resources. There's about 100 different resources on it now. The first category is free resources, which is about half of the 100, and that's from genealogists who have written blogs or blog posts or videos on how to do newspaper research.
Hmm.
There's also that's about that, and then I've got research. Then I got a subscription program and a premium program. The premium program is not any of my stuff. It's stuff that I've found that you actually have to pay for.
Hmm.
Like Storied Newspaper Archive has about 3 or 4 things about newspapers that they charge, I think, $9.99 for or something. And then there's a few others. But the biggest thing is my subscription program, and that's I've got about right now I've got 30 research guides all about newspapers,
Okay.
and I've got about 15 on-demand webinars that I've recorded all about newspapers. And my goal is to have it a place for people to go to and learn about how to be a better newspaper researcher. Basically, that's it.
Yeah. What do you think the big hang up is with people doing newspaper research? What's the hardest thing for folks when they first start doing it?
It's the OCR problems, without
Yeah.
question. I mean, the problem is if you ever looked at an old newspaper that's been digitized, some of the databases, you can actually see the text that
Right.
came from the OCR. Some databases do that, some don't. And if you look at the text compared to what it should be, it's like, holy moly, it's not even
Hmm.
close. And so what happens is people get frustrated because they
Hmm.
don't know what to do.
Right.
Right. And even if they do know what to do, which hopefully from stuff that I've taught them or they learn from my site, uh, you're still not going to find everything.
Right.
Now, the big change is going to be with AI.
Okay. I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you to get your crystal ball out and say,
Yeah,
how is AI going to change this?
it's already doing it. Steve Little, who's the NGS
Hmm.
head guy on AI, he did a prompt for ChatGPT about a year and a half ago, taking some OCR text and using the AI platform ChatGPT to clean it up, and it did a pretty good job. So I think that what you're going to see is some of the database vendors are going to start incorporating um, that kind of stuff into their software. Let me give you an
Hmm.
example.
Sure.
Hyphenation was huge in old newspapers. Why?
Hmm.
Because uh, they, and if you look at newspapers in the 1800s, everything is crammed together, right? There is not much space between columns, and so and they had fixed size type, so they used hyphenated words all the time. As many as 20 to 30% of the words in a paragraph are hyphenated.
Hmm.
Well, the database software currently does not consider that. They only consider looking at the syllable that's at the end of a line, and the remaining part of the word, whether it be one syllable or many, on the next line. Well, it seems to me that if I was a software dude, I would say, okay, let's if it's got a hyphen in there, let's combine those words and let's do a search based on that. They haven't done
Hmm.
that yet, but I suspect that they will. And then just using I to clean up OCR stuff, because what AI does is introduces the concept of meaning into what comes out of an OCR process. Right
Hmm.
now, an OCR process does one and only one thing, and that is it looks for black dots or the absence of black dots. And it says, okay, these black dots, if I put them together, it looks like the letter C. And that's what the result is.
Hmm.
And so I think they're going to introduce the concept of meaning or what words go together with others kind of a deal. But I
Yeah.
suspect it's going to be totally different in 5 years.
Yeah. I got a chance to interview Steve Little, and we talked about just this kind of stuff, and he basically said, you're gonna need to have me on in a year just so I can tell you how much stuff has changed already.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's getting to be kind of interesting and in some ways helpful, a lot of ways helpful, obviously. So you've been doing genealogy for a while, and obviously your the ancestor hunt's been around for a while. if I were a person just getting started in genealogy, just tipping my toe in the water of it, what's the best bit of advice you're going to give me?
I would say it's all, everybody writes that kind of an article. Interview all your older relatives before they pass.
Hmm.
Find out as much information as you can. Start building your little tree and do some research. But you got to talk to the people that are older than you, because there's where the stories are. There's where the old photos are. And if you don't, you're going to be missing out big time. That's what I would do. I wouldn't necessarily. You can jump into Ancestry or MyHeritage or whatever and start doing searches, and that'll be helpful. I'm not. I'm not. I'm a big fan of disciplined searching, but I'm also a big fan of just go for it. Start throwing some stuff in the search box and see what you find.
That's
That
great.
should not be the abundance of your searches, but you never know what you're going to find. Sometimes the mind leads you to places that you wouldn't expect.
All right. Well, Kenneth Marks of theancestorhunt.com, thank you so much for joining me today on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast. It was a real pleasure chatting with you. I would encourage people to go to the site. We'll make sure we put a link on it on the website.
I appreciate that, Noel, and thank you for inviting me. And go newspapers.
Well, I'd really like to thank Kenneth Marks for being with me on the OGS Ohio Roots podcast today to talk about Ancestor Hunt, the website, his history in genealogy, all that he's contributed, and all of the new things that you can see on his website, including the Newspaper Research Academy. So again, I want to thank Kenneth Marks for joining me today, and I want to thank you for listening to the OGS Ohio Roots podcast. Curious about your family's Ohio past? The Ohio Genealogical Society is your gateway to uncovering generations of family history. Whether you're a seasoned researcher or just starting your journey, the OGS offers expert resources, local chapters, exclusive online records, online and in-person programs, and a passionate community ready to help you. Join today and bring your family story to life, because your family's history matters. Visit ogs.org to start your discoveries.
The Ohio Roots podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Genealogical Society, the premier gateway for discovering your Ohio family history. Hosted by OGS Executive Director Mill Poyer and edited by Luke Poyer. Theme song is Beautiful Ohio, recorded by Bob Stanley and his orchestra in 1944. To learn more about joining the Ohio Genealogical Society, visit www.ogs.org.